You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group and co-hosts Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management, Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian from OptionPit.com, Andrew the Rock Lobster GIOVINAZZI from OptionPit.com, and Henry the FLOWMASTer SCHWARTZ from CBOE. The Option Block is brought to you by CBOE. CBOE's suite of S&P 500 index options, SPX and mini S&P 500 XSP options, allows traders to speculate on the direction of the market, generate income, and hedge for downside protection of their portfolio of stocks. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.cboe.com/SPX today to learn more. The views expressed herein are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of CBOE Global Markets Incorporated or any of its subsidiaries, collectively CBOE. The information provided is for general education and information purposes only. There are important risks associated with transacting in any of the CBOE products or any of the digital assets discussed here. Before engaging in any transactions in those products or digital assets, it is important for market participants to carefully review the disclosures and disclaimers contained at www.cboe.com/US_disclaimers. These products and digital assets are complex and are suitable only for sophisticated market participants. These products involve the risk of loss, which can be substantial and, depending on the type of product, can exceed the amount of money deposited in establishing the position. Market participants should put at risk only funds they can afford to lose without affecting their lifestyle. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back once again. It's Thursday. It's noon Central. It's 1 p.m. Eastern. Do you know what's blowing up these here markets? Well, let's find out together, shall we? It is time once again for the Option Block, what the cool kids call the old OB. My name, of course, Mark Longo from the THE, OptionsInsider.com, as well as from the network upon which so many of you are binging these days. Can you tell I had a little bit of caffeine before the show? I feel pumped. I feel wired. Let's hope it lasts throughout the entire show, or if the Rock Lobster doesn't drag me down mentally and emotionally by the end of the show. Of course, you like what you hear this, anything else we got cooking out there, then like, star, comment, rate, review on whatever platform you're getting it on. It's available pretty much everywhere under the sun. Welcome to all the new folks who've been joining us towards the tail end of last year, beginning of this year. We love you all, including all the new folks. At least love to see so many new names floating in and joining us there for the Pro Q&A, our first Pro Q&A of the new year, just earlier this week. Love to see so many new people joining us, so welcome to all the new pro folks as well. If you want to check that out for yourselves, theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go. By the way, little birdie telling me that the sweet, sweet panel, I heard some snippets of it the other day. It is sounding pretty good. I won't say who dared to sneak a recorder into said session to record myself and the FLOWMASTer and JJ from TD Ameritrade, or formerly from TD Ameritrade, now IG, and of course Greg from the world of crypto, who dared to record us all at the midwinter session. But hey, if you listen to the Pro, you don't have to fly all the way in. You don't have to buy a ticket to the conference. You don't have to do all the other crazy stuff. You don't have to endure the sub-zero weather that Henry had to endure when he flew in. because you can get it for yourselves. TheOptionsInsider.com/pro. Just shh, it's a secret. Don't tell anybody else. That's just for you cool folks who take the plunge over there. A little bit of an extra reward for all you folks. On top of all the other great content. I just saw the other day, there's over 300 episodes in that pro feed now. My goodness, there's a lot of great content coming for you folks. If you sign up now, you got weeks worth of listening ahead of you. So enjoy that. TheOptionsInsider.com/pro. As we go around the horn, see who's joining us. I made fun of him so I could at least introduce him first. We are joined, of course, in the CBO hot seat by our old buddy, Mr. Henry SCHWARTZ from CBOE. Mr. FLOWMASTER, welcome back to the show. You had good timing, or I should say bad timing last week, because you came in right at the heart of, shall we say, the true winter spirit hit Chicago, because now a week later, it's about 40 to 50 degrees warmer, sir. So you missed out.
Well, it was still nice to be there, but yeah, it's not so much fun to hit Chicago and land when there's negative temperatures out there. I had to run around the loop a few times, so it was brisk. But now I'm back in New York. It's 50 degrees today, a little rainy. So that's like nothing.
And then you flew out the night before the Bacon Station. You missed the Bacon Station, which is indeed, and on top of our panel, the best reason to attend Stack. If you don't know what the hell I'm talking about, listeners, follow us on Twitter. I tweeted out a photo of it. It is exactly what you think a Bacon Station would be, and also twice as awesome. So check that out over there. Speaking of twice as awesome, he thinks St. Charles is. I guess we'll find out. He is the uncleest of Mikes, Mr. Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management. Uncle Mike, welcome back to the show. Are there any Bacon Stations in the hinterlands of St. Charles?
Can't say I've ever seen a Bacon Station here, but you know what they say, at least what I say, every day's a holiday, every meal's a feast, regardless of what you're eating. We get to be blessed with meals. We're doing pretty good in this country.
And every meal, they also say, is better with bacon, which we turn out now to the hinterlands of Maine, the far distant shores of Maine, where he has to hunt his own wild feral pigs to kill them just for his own bacon. That's how desperate he is to get some bacon. He is the rock lobster himself, Mr. Andrew G. from OptionPit.com. Mr. G, welcome back to the show. How goes your hunt for the feral pig bacon, sir?
Going well. I managed, but I have yet to bag one in the wild, sadly.
You're too busy hunting those clam pirates to get yourself some feral pig bacon. So we'll give him a chance to go do it, listeners, as we keep on rolling right on into the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the trading block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the trading block, the portion of the show where we figure out what the heck is trading out there. And yeah, it's another weird one. After a rough start to the year for the markets, we've pretty much been in now the last week and change, the same mode we were in for pretty much the entirety of last year, which is pretty much straight up from an underlying perspective. S&P up again today, up about 16 handles. We did break 4,900 since our last show. So I know not too long ago we were talking about, man, we're dancing around 47.5. Looks like maybe we'll start trending. Even in the middle of the show, looked like we were going to start trending back down to 4,700. Then nope, that same day, bam, right back up to 4,800, then 48.5. Then we hit 4,900. Back below it again right now, but we'll see. The session is, of course, still young. S&P up 0.33%, Dow up about 0.2%, NASDAQ up about 0.33% as well. So kind of a vacillating type of day. We've joked in the past, the market can't be green if Apple is red. Now we're putting that to the test with Tesla because they are coming for Tesla today. We talked before about earnings. I think the Rock Lobster called them the good biggies coming up or something like that this week. Well, Tesla definitely one of those good biggies. Or I forgot if it was a big biggie or a good biggie. It was one of those two. Either way, Tesla taking it on the chin off 26 handles or 12.5%. Well shy of 200 handle again. 181 and change right now. But the market's still green in spite of all that. So maybe the Apple adage doesn't really extend to Tesla. It makes sense. I mean, it's nowhere near the market cap of Apple, even though trading volume-wise, Tesla rules the roost. So kind of an interesting dichotomy out there. Massive red day for Tesla. Yet the NASDAQ and the rest of the indices out there still green, which is kind of fascinating. Also fascinating is the rest of our vol indices, despite the fact that we've mostly rallied since our last show, have kind of remained kind of frothy, kind of resilient. We were at about a 13.5 on the Monday show. Guess where we were right when we kicked off the show? Right about a 13.5 again, listeners. So VIX literally unched on the week, at least so far. So all this upside You know, we were talking on the show, I think it was on Vol Views last week as well, about, you know, all this upside, still vol isn't coming off maybe the way you'd expect, maybe indicating maybe people are looking for some other shoes to drop out there. Maybe they're not fully buying into this rally. Either way, vol still frothy. And again, we always say it too, the end of the day, movement is movement, whether it's to the upside or to the downside. People always forget that as well. So we've had some strong upside movement. So that could also be the reason why VIX is remaining, I won't say super frothy, because 13.5 isn't super frothy, but resilient around this 13.5 level. VVIX at an 81, so still about the same level as Monday's show, up about a point. It was at an 80 on Monday. VXX 14.5, down about a quarter. You see where I'm going with this, listeners. A lot of treading water this week. UVXY 760, kind of unched, down about 1/10 of a point. SVIX 39 double, up about a quarter. So again, kind of treading water. And UVIX, a thing that could move a couple of handles in a few minutes, is only down a quarter. 11 3/4 right now is where it's trading. So again, a quiet week for UVIX out there. So kind of a weird one out there across the board. Let's go the way we went around the horn. Let's start in the land of CBOE East. Mr. Flowmaster, as you are regretting missing the bacon station and now the 50+ degree warmer weather in Chicago. What is catching your eye out there in the markets today, sir?
I was actually just putting some notes together for a Schwab TV interview I'm going to do right after this podcast. And, you know, we're looking at some pretty interesting markets, right? We're at all-time highs for, you know, the S&P 500 and NASDAQ. And, you know, Russell is not there, although it's rebounded from the really poor performance. But I think the story of the day certainly is Tesla. You know, that's a big earnings move. I think we're pricing in about 10%. So, you know, to see shares off, you know, 13%, almost 12.5%, that's greater than expected. We could see 5.5, almost 6 million contracts traded in there today. And the last record, that would put it in the second place. The all-time record for Tesla is over 7 million contracts. That was actually last January post-earning. So it is, I think I put out some stats. Tesla was the volume leader for the third year in a row last year. So it's clearly dethroned Apple, and you know, that's where the focus is, and you know, it's a big move.
You know, all this talk about Tesla downside has me firing up a button on the old trade alert machine I haven't fired up in a while, Mr. Flowmaster, the Tesla downside button. That was created just because we were talking so much about those catastrophe puts. You recall those?
That's right. What was it, the 50 strike?
They were like the 10s. They were ridiculous. 10? Yeah, they were the 10s and things like that. Looking right now, these aren't quite as dire, but still pretty bad. Someone bought nearly 5,000 of the 90 puts this morning, expiring tomorrow. Oh, wait, these are expiring tomorrow for a penny. So these would certainly qualify as near-dated catastrophe puts. Imagine if Tesla threatens a 90 handle by tomorrow, or even comes anywhere close. Wow. So, yeah, there's a few of these. Another 4,300 going up for a penny. Par puts also expiring tomorrow, also trading for a penny. So, yeah, a lot of garbage nonsense puts. 3,000 more of the 90s trading for a penny, all going up for tomorrow. So there you go, listeners. Of all this paper we're talking about in Tesla, it looks like about close to 20,000 contracts at least are in what I would charitably describe as garbage puts going out in one day. So yeah, some of that paper starting to fire up again. It wasn't as near dated in the past. It was usually a year and change out in the January expiration. These are just tomorrow Jan, so very different beast. Wow. That puts the term garbage puts in a whole different connotation. 1 day to go, cut in half puts. We've talked about these junk puts maybe performing better than we thought. I don't know if 1 day is enough to really move the needle. I'll have to talk with our resident garbage put expert, Mr. Matt. I was just talking to him yesterday. See if he's back tested the 1 day 50% out of the money put. I don't think that's going to backtest very well. Let's go out to the land of the feral pigs right now, back to the shores of Maine. First off, Mr. Rock Lobster, how many of the 90 puts in Tesla expiring tomorrow did you buy for a penny? And then what else is catching your eye out there?
Those were really a penny?
Yeah, and they bought over 10,000 of them.
Oh, not 190. Oh.
No, not 190, not 190, 90.
I was thinking you were just saying, okay, somebody bought the 190 puts yesterday, and I'm like, how are they a penny? Okay, but now I'm paying attention.
No, 90.
Oh yeah. Well, you know, I guess if you like those puts, I'll tell you what, though, the fact that the 145, well, the 160s are trading 20,000 contracts. So I myself did not buy any. I actually closed some put flies yesterday. I didn't make very much money on them. I just didn't want to hold them into the earnings. But some of my students did. I made a couple of bucks, but nothing to write home about. But how do you value Tesla's a hard thing to value. Because now it's sort of like, it's almost like Musk is talking it down. Like he's looking for protection against China. He's like, he wants to spin out his AI and robotics. It's almost like I'm feeling like as Tesla, the car company, again, but Musk is what he is. So like but you're trying to figure out the guy, and you're like, well, maybe he's done with the EV thing, right? He's kind of moved on. And the question is how does he extricate the value of all the R&D he does in Tesla and bring it into something he has control over? I don't think that's great for Tesla's share price in the short term. But again, I'm not selling the guy, but it feels like he would want, he's got the SpaceX thing going with the satellites and, possibly creating havoc with like AT&T, Verizon, and all the other wireless carriers. So again, very interesting dynamic from Tesla as a point of view, where this is kind of how the stock trades. It kind of flies. Remember it was up 20x from the beginning of January 2020 until mid 2022 when it peaked. I think it had a 20-fold increase. So, I'm just starting to say like the EV thing might be getting a little cold and a little difficult to navigate at this point. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I think though it does probably lose a little more value. That's all I would say with the Tesla thing. So as far as buying those out of the money puts, at a 45 volatility I think this is about as low as the vol. Yeah. Like we're getting kind of down there. So, the options are not really expensive, but Tesla tends to trade at a higher vol when it's rallying. So I thought definitely on my radar scheme for a new trade. I just haven't done anything. Besides that little put fly that I had on, because I thought the EV thing is starting to go away just a little, which obviously is harder for Tesla.
Is it going away to Jan 90s by tomorrow? Maybe is it going away that hard, that fast?
I don't know if it's going that. I don't think it's going that fast. But you never know.
These might get added to one of my trade of the year contenders. These are just fun. These are fun for all sorts of the wrong reasons.
I think it's a good list for you to keep.
Someone has to track this nonsense. Why not us, listeners? So yeah, that's a fun one. That's a good one. We'll keep that in our back pocket out there. Listen. By the way, people forget. Everyone's wringing their hands. Tesla down 20 handles to 181. It was right around $100, about exactly a year ago. So it still could easily go back to that level. People tend to they have such short-term memories. What a dire sell-off back to 180 and change. It was $100, close to it. People were writing all these articles about Tesla. The end was there, and then more than doubled post that. So yeah, a lot of craziness afoot. Let's go out to the land of St. Charles, where Uncle Mike never met a penny 50% plus out of the money put that he didn't want to buy. And he can't stop buying these things. Mr. Uncle Mike, how many of these Tesla puts did you buy for a penny? And then what else is catching your eye out there, sir?
Oh, in the millions. How can you go wrong with penny options? Am I right?
Especially with a day to go. That's just free money if ever I saw.
All right. And that's the authorities knocking on my door for saying such things. So sorry about that. Anyway, with this market right now, it's like we make the run for the all-time highs on the S&P. I got to say my thing the other day, but it's at a point right now to where I don't think I can say it today because we had the high yesterday, unfortunately. So nonetheless, we're still knocking on the door of the 4,900 level, and we'll actually see if we can break through it, and possibly I can give my trademark saying again on Monday, perhaps. In terms of some things that are catching my eye for the day-to-day, within the sectors, we actually don't have it's fairly broad-based with what we're looking at it. We do have technology up roughly 1% on the day. We do have energy up 0.8% on the day, just kind of looking at it. Discretionaries are down 1.5%. So it's balancing out, but it's not overall what I would call a tech-driven rally or whatever the case may be. And let's just be honest with ourselves, we're up 0.4% on the day. It's not really a major rally at all anyway. So we do have that. In terms of some other things with which I'm seeing in the bond market, we are getting some buyers again with it. But once again, not a ton of buyers. And it'll just be interesting to see if this is where bonds just want to sit here for a while, or is there a reason to believe that they could go up with buyers coming in? And we'll just kind of have to wait and see with everything. Some other things with which I'm seeing that are catching my eye or lighting up my tape, if you will. Of course, Netflix with a big day yesterday, and that's up roughly 2% on the day to day. Just the fact, I think that there must be something about the WWE having something to do with Netflix. I mean, how can you possibly go wrong when you make a deal with Vince McMahon, right?
WWE making headlines 2 news cycles in a row. One of them good, one of them pretty horrible.
So, yeah, there's definitely a lot going on. Then Microsoft is above the 400 level now. So that's definitely something of note that's catching my eye. And just continuing to watch stuff go up and hope it goes up quicker, obviously. I want more money right now and quicker. And that's what I'm seeing today.
Give the man more money quicker, markets. What are you doing? This 50% upside for AI last year, not enough for Uncle Mike's taste. He needs more, listeners. Yeah, funny about how WWE very much driving the narrative for the last couple of sessions. Netflix choosing to wait till the day of their earnings to announce their big deals. TKO stock also shooting up quite a bit off the news. Kind of came off the highs. It was threatening nearly 100, then they kind of came back down on it. And then, of course, all the Vince fun popping off today, not helping anything either out there. Man, just great guy to have front and center ringing the bell for you when you know this stuff is swirling around him. Kind of not the best choice. Let's just put it that way. Let's keep on rolling. Let's see if their markets are the best choice. By the way, speaking of best choices, if you don't like those Jan 90 puts expiring tomorrow in Tesla, allow me to present to you the June 50s trading for about 11 cents earlier this morning as well. Let's see how many of those bad boys did they buy. They bought, looks like about 3,000 of those for around 11 cents. So, 90 by tomorrow, maybe a little bit too quick for you. How about 50 by June, listeners? Trading 11 cents. Is the 50 strike the new catastrophe put in Tesla? I don't know. I'll put it out there to you to find out. I haven't done my search in a while to see if for a long time, the number one open interest contract in Tesla options was around the 10 strike for the puts, and sometimes the ones. So I don't think we're quite there anymore, but still intriguing stuff. Let's see if things are intriguing out there in the markets today from a volume perspective. The answer is kind of, again, depends where you look. If you start in VIX, as we always do, the answer is not really much of anything. 143,000 contracts only on the day. So VIX is shrugging its shoulders to all this noise. They're like, Tesla, who cares? 649,000 is the ADV right now. So right halfway around where it was not too long ago, about 50K above it, 50K below the 700K where it was not too long ago as well. So kind of hanging out right in the middle of the range it's been in of late from an ADV perspective. SPY, though, looking pretty robust, 5.2 million contracts on the day. That's roughly a million more than we expect this time of the day. ADV, 8.15 million, so looks like a pretty robust day for SPY. The S, 1.7 million. That's about what we expect this time of day in this new post-zero DTE environment. The ADV about 3.25 million out there. Small caps 882,000, so they're well on their way. They're hitting their ADV of 1.32 million. By the way, we didn't do our little checkup with our small cap friends. Let's see what they're up to. Up about 0.5% today, listeners. So small caps looking robust today. And the Qs 2.2 million, the ADV 3.5 million. That's about exactly where we expect the Qs to be too. They put up all these numbers early on in the session. Then they spend the rest of the day getting that last million or so contracts. Kind of a weird bit of flow, but it seems to work for the Qs. Let's go out to the top 10 most actives, listeners. Let's see, is it a banger day for the single names? It's earnings season, so we should expect a little bit of a higher bar, and that's pretty much what we're we're getting. Right now, it costs you 332,000 contracts to break into the top 10. That's nothing to sneeze at. That's more robust than we've seen it in quite some time. That gets it to our old friends, American Airlines, up nearly $1.50 today, trading $15.40, so a little over 10% for them. So a nice pop for American Airlines. 52-week high was $19, and the low was $10. Excuse me. So they're right pretty much a little bit north of the halfway point in that range on the year. And again, good for 332,000 contracts on the tape, listeners. Number 9. Our former friends across the show. I'm not sure if they've officially moved yet or not, but there is still some Boeing stuff on the building across the street. But of course, Boeing, ticker symbol BA, 364,000 contracts for number 9, $200.50 off 13 3/4. The only time you see Boeing in these top 10s, listeners, are when either it's earnings day or when something horrible is happening in the airline side, and we're still dealing with the fallout from that door plug popping off on the door. So yeah, the stock taking another hit off nearly $14 today. Not quite at his 52-week low of 176.25, but right around $24 north of it right now. So also not that pretty far away from his 52-week high of 267.5. So yeah, it's been a rough couple of weeks here for Boeing, as you might expect. They did bounce off 200 back on Jan 16th. They tried to rally it back. They got up to about 215 again before crushing it right back down to 200. So whatever legs people thought Boeing had, they got cut off again out here. Listen, let's go out to number 8, I should say, my old stomping grounds, Intel, 372,000 contracts. Intel up about 20 cents, trading right around 49.25. That's exactly 49.28 actually. It's exactly $2 below its 52-week high of 51.28 out there. So looking pretty good for Intel today. Number 7, our old friend Alphabet. Man, just a little over a year ago, we used to joke, if Alphabet's in the top 10, you know it's a snoozer. And then bam, here comes AI out of nowhere, listeners. And now all of a sudden, Alphabet is sexy. 382,000 for number 7, Alphabet, 151.38, up 268, or about 1.8%. And they're about $1.50 away from their 52-week high of a little bit north of 153. And again, good for number 7. Number 6, I haven't seen Apple this far down in quite some time. Apple, number 6, only 430,000 contracts. Apple kind of unched on the day, 194.5. They got up to, looks like as high as 196.25 this morning. So they were getting back within spitting distance of their all-time high. Then they kind of gave it back up again. So intriguing stuff. If Apple continues to sell off, that might drag us back down in the broad equities. But for now, good for number 6, 430,000 contracts. Keeping it in the A, tech names for number 5, the Amazonians, 440,000 contracts. 157.33, up about $0.50 today. They're about $1 and change below their 52-week high of 158.50. And again, good for 440,000 contracts today. Number 4, it's PayPal, 510,000 contracts. They're revamping out there. Oh, they whispered the magic letters as well, AI. But you know what? Doesn't seem to be enough. The stock's selling off $2, trading 61 right now. Their 52-week high of 88.62, 52-week low of 50.25. So they're much closer to the latter than the former. So yeah, it doesn't look like the AI came soon enough for this one out here. But it's good for number 4 today. Number 3, speaking of AI, it's NVDA, listeners. NVDA, 998,000 contracts today. So a banger volume day for them. 614.71, up about $1. This chart, the 52-week low, 189.5. 52-week high, 628.5. My goodness, the power of AI right there, listeners. 998,000. Number 2, right above it. Once again, AMD saying, hold my bear. 1.08 million contracts for them. 179.85, up about $1.50 for them. They're about $5 away from their 52-week high of 184.92. And then the number 1, you don't need me to tell you what number 1 is today, listeners. It's Tesla off to the races. 3.5 million contracts roughly. That's a banger. That's more than we've seen from them in quite some time. I think the FLOWMASTER said the high for them was 7 million. We'll have to check in on that with the FLOWMASTER again. But obviously, they're putting up some numbers as they're selling off roughly 26 handles right now, hanging out right around 182. We already told you about how many tens of thousands of nonsense puts are going up out there. Clearly, with 3.5 million contracts, you got some room for some nonsense. In terms of earnings, we already said it's a banger week. Yesterday, of course, we had Tesla, IBM, and AT&T. Tuesday, Verizon, 3M, GE, J&J, and good old Netflix announcing their big deal with WWE, the two of them really rallying off that news. That was kind of interesting. Thursday, American Airlines. We have Alaska Airlines. They have the door popping out infamy. Southwest Airlines, Intel, and a whole bunch of credit cards. And then tomorrow, speaking of credit cards, we got Amex tomorrow. We got, looks like, updated hot off the presses earnings move result, earnings season. Let's go straight to Tesla because the FLOWMASTER was just talking about them. They were going into their announcement 207.83. They were pricing in 7.2%. As of the time we ran this report, which was about a couple hours ago, it was 9. They had moved 9.3%. Obviously, they have moved more than that now. They're off 12.5%. So dramatically outperforming their straddle, which is interesting because I was just talking to Matt about these numbers yesterday, and he was kind of noticing what I've been noticing, that after last cycle where everyone was pricing in a ton of extra juice and they were mostly hitting those numbers, the season ended out right around 119% after all. This cycle is completely the opposite. People are pricing in a heck of a lot less juice, and at least for Tesla's blowing it out, but the other ones are kind of coming in line. Well, we got American Airlines. They're pricing in 5.2%. They delivered about 7.2% as well. And then IBM, only 4.2%, and they delivered 10.3%. So on the tech side and airline side, they were outperforming. We'll have to keep an eye on the rest of the numbers, listener, to see if that trend continues. Here goes Southwest. Southwest was pricing in 5.6%. They popped out before the bell this morning, only delivering about 1.7%. So does seem like the lion's share, outside of those big tech names we were just talking about, the lion's share of these names we're tracking here are underperforming from an earnings vol perspective. Like Southwest Airlines was 69% lower than what they were pricing in from a vol perspective. So yeah, some of these are really starting to squeeze the vol, which is fascinating in and of itself. We got Intel after the bell today. They're trading $49 even. They're pricing in 3 3/4. In the past, they moved about $3.50. So a little bit extra juice, but nothing to write home about. We'll see if that is merited after the bell today. You can see all the rest of these for yourselves, including GM coming up next week, EA coming up next week. You know where to go to find all this. Alphabet next week, all kinds of stuff. Microsoft, theoptionsinsider.com. Click on the Options News and Articles tab. Boeing next week as well. A lot of names. We could spend the whole rest of the show going through these listeners, but we won't. We'll keep on going. We'll unleash the FLOWMASTER because it's time for the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody, let's get weird. Let's get wild. Always loving the FLOWMASTER joins us because he throws us fun curveballs. Like, for example, Mr. FLOWMASTER, I am very familiar with eBay, but I am not familiar with its evil twin CBAY. Ticker symbol CBAY. CBAY, easy for me to say. This is actually because it's CBAY Therapeutics, listeners. This is obviously a biotech. They're coming out of California. It looks like they have subsidiaries all over the globe. Trading 22 3/4, off about 15 cents today. On the year, let's see. Good year for them. A year ago was $7.80, and then they've pretty much been nothing but shooting straight up. The high for the year is actually 25 and about a third. That was a few weeks ago, so they come off the highs, but still up almost 200% on the year. So this is a classic biotech here stock. They have breakthrough therapy they came out with. They don't say for therapy for what, though. Interesting stuff. Mr. FLOWMASTER, sir, what caught your eye out here in my new favorite eBay competitor, CBAY?
Exactly. At least it's easy to remember. So this is an interesting one, and I'll tell you, I really do like directional option flow when it comes to biotechs because you see some smart traders taking advantage of, kind of the features of options, the leverage and the convexity. And so this is a really simple one. This is a buyer of 2,200 of the April 30 calls. So these have a little ways to go. You got almost 2 months plus until they expire. But this buyer paid 68 to 69 cents for 2,200 April 30 calls. Stock was around 22.80. Stock's pretty much still there. Hasn't really done very much. It's way above the average daily volume. and in fact, I went and looked back to see if this thing ever kind of heats up. And there actually were some busy days in early January. So January 3rd and 2nd were also pretty heavy. That's when the stock was at $22.99, almost 23. The stock did get up to 24.5 and then kind of go sideways for a while. So, this attention to drug trials, and I don't know what these guys have, but I assume they have something in trials, because that's what biotechs do. And so, you see some interesting, basically indirect betting on the outcome of trials, and the medical professionals can pay close attention to those trials. And there's a little bit of, certain professionals and people with a lot of experience can figure out things that kind of the rest of us can't. So that's really why I like biotechs, and it's just a bullish bullish block in CBAY.
Everybody loves CBAY. By the way, they are advancing life-changing treatments for patients with primary biliary cholangitis. So there you go. The disease everyone wants them to cure, PBC. Get rid of PBC. No one likes PBC. So there you go. That's what they're working on. Obviously, it's been working well for them. And dare I say it, we joke about these Tesla catastrophe puts, and we have fun with a lot of those. But dare I say it, out of the money call paper and biotechs was kind of the reason this segment was invented. That's the paper everybody knows and loves. That's what they're coming to the dance for. Upside calls and biotechs. So I'm glad you can deliver for them today, Mr. Flowmaster. Mr. Rock Lobster, what are your thoughts on your new favorite eBay competitor, CBAY? And do you too want to win the fight against PBC, sir?
Yeah, I would like to win the fight. I guess it sounds like something very serious, Yeah,
it has an acronym. It must be bad.
Also too, it does win the CBAY award for interesting name that is very close to another name. So now also I would say when Henry says he likes the flow here, because the biotech thing is like, okay, somebody knows what this drug is or and you always have these biotech geeks that seem to know all this stuff. So this is one of those where you're like, okay, I think the guy that's buying all the options might have a good idea. But again, this is stock's 22 and they're buying the April 30. I mean, for a biotech, I don't even think it's an unreasonable trade, to be quite honest. And clearly they wanted them. So is this a case where they're putting the trade back in the guy's face? So it does pass our sniff test. So, which historically has been quite good, by the way. So they paid through the offer, and now they are 70-cent bids. So I'm just gonna say that's as good of a start as you would want for if you're a call buyer to go greeny on the first day.
Yeah, it's a long way to go. The 30 strike by April, but it is a biotech, and it has shown the propensity to make some moves in the past. Listeners, you like these? 68, almost 69 cents, paying through the offer, about a 57 vol. The OI on the strike before this trade, 34. So clearly opening new paper out here. Swinging for the upsides, the only way you could describe it for good old CBAY out here, a newcomer. Got to keep an eye on this one. And then speaking of newcomers, Mr. Flowmaster, your next one, up-and-comer. I'm not very familiar with it. I think you pronounce it SPY. Is that correct? Tell our listeners, what did you spot in this up-and-coming new name, sir?
So today we're going with one easy one, right, which is just a call buyer. And then one that's a little funkier, but it is in a ticker that I think everybody certainly that's listening has heard of, which is SPY, the S&P 500 ETF. It is the most active product in terms of volume. It trades about, I think, 13 million contracts a day. No, just 8.5 million contracts a day. But so this is a funky one, though, because last Friday what we saw was a mega butterfly. So put butterfly, people can Google it, I guess, but it's effectively, one vertical spread against another vertical spread. And the bet, if you buy the thing, is that it ends up at the very center strike. Okay, it's a very specific bet. The payoff can be huge if you're right, but the likelihood of being exactly right is incredibly small. So last Friday we saw the March 1st expiration 395, 410, 415 put fly trade 70,000 times for 8 cents. So that was a customer seller. And so what that means is the customer is basically short the 410, 415 put spread, and he happens to own the 395, 410 put spread. So if the market goes down beyond 395, it's worthless. If we expire above 415, it's also worthless. And at 410, it's worth $5. And so this was sold for 8 cents. It's all opening. And if it were to expire at that center strike, it'd be worth about $100 million. They only took in 8 cents, those 70,000 times. So it's a very interesting risk reward, an enormous amount of risk for a pretty small reward. And then on top of that, there's usually commissions are being paid. So that I wrote that up last week. And then there's another one yesterday, awfully similar. I think it's got to be the same trader. And this one is 100,000 by 200,000 by 100,000 of the March 400, 415, 430 put fly, the regular March 15th expiration. So same deal. It looks like a seller. This time they only got, I think they only got 4 cents for it, and it opened as well. So it reminds me of, we were watching some zero DTE SPX trades last year. There was a lot of flow going on, and people are using that product for all sorts of different reasons. But there was also some of these big vertical spreads trading for a nickel periodically, and they were big. And it was one of those situations you're like, well, there's a nickel credit to the seller, but the risk is pretty huge, right? If it's 10 or 15 handles wide. So it just kind of echoes of that. A very specific trade, a very high risk reward ratio.
Yeah, 4 cents for that second one. That's my favorite fly. We have coined a new term though, the MegaFly. Mr. Rock Lobster, are you down with a little bit of SPY MegaFly action, sir?
This trade boggles my mind. Why the heck would you put this trade on? Am I missing something on this?
Juicy.
So
I don't think you're missing anything.
Juicy 4 cents. What more do you need?
Like, okay, I guess you could say the risk is limited to $100 million to take in $560. Like, how does this? I don't know. I'm totally like Henry. How does this make money ever?
Well, I mean,
is
if
it a
they
roll,
get away
Henry?
with it,
is this all opening?
It's all opening. If they get away with it, they keep 400 grand, right, on that size. But yeah.
Okay. They get away with 400,000. Okay, so
Yeah.
because when you said $560 in premium, I thought they sold it for nothing. So they taken 8 cents. What, 100,000 times?
The one today is the one yesterday was 4 cents 100,000 times. The one last week was a little bit more, but a little smaller size. But yeah, they seem to be
like
comfortable.
400,000. Okay.
Yeah.
So, wow.
Big.
So I mean, I could see that. I mean, that's your grandma's, that's your girlfriend's Ferrari, but man, expensive. It's probably right in the same ballpark as the risk on some of the other line. This to me looks like a line in the sand trade. I misunderstood on the 4 cents on it. I thought they were getting only $560 in premium total. I'm like, what?
Still, the 4 cents is not exactly anything to write home about,
Right. They're saying, wow, it's a guaranteed 4 cents. This is the kind of trade you have to show like Chris Sedile on from Ambrose, or the Croissant Man, Jim Carson. But this is where people come in and they get all really confident and they just start doing trades like this.
This is a fund that has more dollars than cents, perhaps,
I you know what? I think that's the only way. But so that's also a reason why that's how vol goes to zero, because all of a sudden somebody's got 100,000 flies for 4 cents. I'm sure they could sell something against that and satisfy some risk managers. So But that's how vol starts to get in the single digits, or VIX drops below 12 when there's the confidence to sell a trade like that, which we could speculate on what we think the Fed's going to do or whatever, but it's almost like somebody knows what the Fed's going to do when you do that trade. But maybe they just have keen insight into what's going on.
I just love the idea of some fund sitting on a boatload of money, and they say, what do you want to do with it? How about sell a fly, MegaFly, for 4 cents? That's the only thing they could come up with to put all this capital to work with. Maybe.
Yeah. What's the return on the 100 mil? And because the margin must be fairly big on that.
Return that capital to your investors. I think they could do something better with it than the 4 cents for this MegaFly. But I digress as we keep on rolling and go into the mail block.
It's time to take your seat on the All-Star panel as we read your emails, tweets, Facebook messages, website comments, and much more. It's time for the Mail Block.
All right, listeners, let's do it. Let's get into your mail, your questions, your comments, your insights that you share with us all the time on our various questions and polls. Last week, we asked you folks, new trading year, which option strategy do you anticipate using the most in this new year? We tried to squeeze as many as we could into 4 buckets. Gave you long calls, long puts or verticals, covered calls, short puts or verticals, straddles, strangles and flies, or calendars and diagonals. And you folks are looking forward to paying for some primo this year. Long calls, long puts, and verticals taking it 39.5%, followed by number 2 going the other way, selling some premium, 31.6% for covered calls, short puts, and verticals. 21.1% for the old straddles, strangles, and butterflies. We didn't have room to put MegaFlies in there, listeners, but that certainly we would have if we had enough space for that. And then only 7.9% going the calendar and diagonal route, which I do believe was Uncle Mike's choice. So he was not feeling the spirit of our audience last week. Let's give him another chance to redeem himself, shall we, listeners? Our question this week, not an area that he plays in very often, but he does play in the old S&P realm, so he's trading vol whether he wants to admit it or not. But we asked you folks right now, what is your preferred way to trade broad market volatility? Again, gave you 4 buckets to go through. Good old, plain old SPX or SPY options. You just like buying those and maybe hedging them, maybe not, trading your vol that way. Or you're going to go the VIX route, your VIX options and your VIX futures. Or maybe you prefer yourself a little bit of straightforward vol ETPs like your VXXs. Or maybe you like to get a little fancy, a little exotic with some inverse or levered vol ETPs like your UVXYs and all of that fun. I got a feeling somebody is gumming up our numbers here, looking at the results. I won't say who, but you know who you are out there, listeners. He may or may not have been on Vol Views with us recently. But let's go to Uncle Mike first. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, what is your choice if you have one? I think you're probably going to vote for yourself. I'm going to write you in already for the SPX SPY options. More importantly, what do you think our audience is voting for? How are they slinging some vol this year, sir?
Well, as much as I'd like to pick the inverse levered vol ETP.
Why not? Go for it. It's fun.
What's that?
I said, why not? Go for it. They're fun. Have fun.
Yeah, they do sound like a lot of fun, but unfortunately, I have to keep to my objectives, and I will stay in the SPY realm, as you said. But you know what? I'll give that one to the audience. I think they're looking to have some fun this year. So I will go with inverse levered vol ETPs for the audience.
All right. Interesting. Mr. FLOWMASTER, same question for you, sir. What is your preferred way to sling some vol? I'm guessing you're a VIX guy, but you never know. And then B, which way do you think our audience is going?
I do prefer, actually I really prefer SPX. It's the liquidity in there is so extremely high that you can do whatever you want, and it doesn't feel like there's really any transaction cost to experience. I would think that I bet our listeners are also using SPX and SPY more so than the VIX products.
All right, Mr. Rock Lobster, the last word is yours, sir. Which way are you going? Are you going the ETPs? You going the straight VIX? You going maybe some S&P? And which way do you think our audience is going?
I use VIX and SPX combination. That has worked the best for me personally.
That is not a choice.
The audience, I know I'm cheating, but I like the two of them. So that's what I like. I mean, and I think the audience is just going to plain old SPX SPY. That's what I think.
All right, we had some reasonable results in our poll. Then I won't say who struck in the intervening couple of hours, and he's gumming up the works here. S&P options were taking it. They were running away with it. And then our old buddy, Mr. Jim Carroll, a.k.a. the captain of the UVXY Defense Force, started summoning his legions to the poll. He raised the banner for UVXY. And now, as a result, right now, inverse or levered ETPs are moving into the poll position, 41.4%. So Jim Carroll sicking his UVXY minions on our poll. That guy, I told him he was the captain of the UVXY Defense Force last week, and he laughed it off. He said, pshaw, that's not me. And then look what he does. He completely distorts our results in favor of his favorite product. So that guy, I need to have a talking with Mr. Vixologist. So right now, Uncle Mike's favorite, inverse levered ETP staking it. I smell the hand of skullduggery at work here, listeners. Followed by number 2, plain old SPX and SPY options, 36.2%. They were number 1 until a couple hours ago. And then only 15.5% going the VIX route. That's kind of interesting. And then your straight plain vanilla vol ETPs like VXX bringing up the rear, 6.9%. Get out there and vote. If you want to fight back against the UVXY Defense Force, you want to stake your flag in, I don't know, VIX or VXX or SPX, whatever else floats your boat, get out there at options. You've got about a day and a half or so left to make your voice heard, listeners, as we keep going and go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, listeners, let's go around the block while I recover from this blatant vol skullduggery and poll manipulation. Let's go out to the Unclest of Mike's first. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, what are you keeping an eye on until the Monday episode?
4,900 laser focused. I think that's a very key number for us with where we are with the SPX and hoping to see a new all-time high.
The man's not satisfied until he has a new all-time high every freaking day. So give it to him, listeners. Otherwise, we have to just listen to him every day, and that's painful for all of us. Mr. FLOWMASTER, same question for you, sir. What are you keeping an eye on until your next appearance next Thursday?
You know, it's funny. So when we Dow crossed 38,000 on Tuesday, I think, and that reminded me when we were independent back about 10 years ago, we were selling Dow 15,000 hats that we designed on Zazzle or something and put up on a little web store. We sold a bunch of those hats. It was not quite as exciting as the Dow 10K, but it does kind of make you step back and go, wow, that's a pretty big move. And it has been a decade or so, but still, it's a big move. Now, Bitcoin back then was around $200 too. So take that as you will. I'm going to be watching earnings. You know, we have Intel. We have a handful of big names over the next couple of weeks. And if things are as exciting as they've been with Netflix and Tesla, then it's going to be a very busy couple of weeks.
And Mr. FLOWMASTER, Mr. Rock Lobster, last word for you, sir. What are you keeping an eye on until the Monday show?
Well, 4,900. Yeah, we've touched it. Again, we're still technically we're at a closing high right now. It would be a high close here, although we were up a lot more earlier today. And talk about bringing something back from the dead, IBM. So that might be something good for oddities, but it's almost $200. It hasn't been that high in for a million years, I don't think so. Anyway, because they whispered the magic word. So I am looking at that. And how high can some of these stocks go? Woohoo!
It makes me nervous whenever the Rock Lobster is this giddy, listeners. Sold all stocks, if he's this optimistic. All right, that music means we've come to the end. I know the FLOWMASTER has to skedaddle. He has to go slum it on some lesser network, so let's let him go do that, listeners. Mr. FLOWMASTER, sir, where should folks go if they want to check out all of your FLOWMASTER goodies, including maybe some reinvigorated Tesla downside puts, sir?
Well, look for me on Schwab TV today at about 3 o'clock, New York time. And then CBOE.com/RMA for risk and market analytics. It's where I have all the good stuff, and we're happy to set people up with trials and show you the magic.
There you go. See the magic for yourselves. CBOE.com/RMA. Allow me to recommend the Tesla downside scan if you do set it up. It's some pretty fun info there. All right, and Mr. Rock Lobster, sir, where should folks go if they want more Option Pit goodness in their life?
I go optionpit.com. I'm going to be launching a kind of a new addendum to my OP mentoring product. We'll call like the ratio married put. It's just a trade. It's a trade that allows you to trade with confidence at all-time highs. So you're not there just holding what in the wind. So look for that soon. And 888-TRADE-01, you get 10% off if you say you heard it from this here show.
There you go. And last but not least, Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, where should folks go if they want more Uncle Mike in their lives?
Follow me on Twitter at Mike TOSAW, TOSAW, and check out my website, stcharleswealth.com.
There you go. A lot of great content, a lot of great info there in between his appearances on this fine program. And listeners, a little birdie telling me maybe one of these two crazy knuckleheads may be running the show on the program on Monday. So look forward to a train wreck on Monday's OB. We got a lot more to come before then, though. I'll be back in a little bit with the folks from Prosper Trading Academy joining me on the CME hot seat in a little bit to break down all the futures options fun going on over there on TWIFO. That'll be in a little bit for all you listening live. Of course, on demand for all you on-demand folks in a little bit later today. Tomorrow, Vol Views. Maybe I'll give Mr. Vixologist a virtual hard time for gumming up our poll with his blatant skullduggery. And then, of course, after that, coming back again for Options Oddities. Maybe we'll talk Beamer. Maybe we'll talk a whole bunch of fun. You never know what's going to make it on good old Options Oddities. That's why you got to check it out over there, theoptionsinsider.com/pro. Then when the cat's away, the crazies will play. So we'll see what happens on the Monday's episode of the Option Block. Stay safe out there, everybody.
The Option Block is brought to you by CBOE. CBOE's suite of S&P 500 index options, SPX and mini S&P 500 XSP options, allows traders to speculate on the direction of the market, generate income, and hedge for downside protection of their portfolio of stocks. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.cboe.com/SPX today to learn more. The views expressed herein are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of CBOE Global Markets Incorporated or any of its subsidiaries, collectively CBOE. The information provided is for general education and information purposes only. There are important risks associated with transacting in any of the CBOE products or any of the digital assets discussed here. Before engaging in any transactions in those products or digital assets, it is important for market participants to carefully review the disclosures and disclaimers contained at www.cboe.com/US_disclaimers. These products and digital assets are complex and are suitable only for sophisticated market participants. These products involve the risk of loss, which can be substantial and, depending on the type of product, can exceed the amount of money deposited in establishing the position. Market participants should put at risk only funds they can afford to lose without affecting their lifestyle. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.